I spent the day reading 80 pages of economic analysis of our world. And you know, music is really cool. And economists can render it very lifeless. It was all really important data, and it was good, and they used our census. You can lie, but how many people answered the census? Who is ever not holding up their hand? They now are holding up their hand. No, I mean, I think it is a first step, and what's good is it acknowledges all of the challenges of documenting and assessing this industry. And as the economists came into it, so the deal was the state legislature committed to recognize commercial music and live performance as an emerging economic sector. And the other sectors that the state recognizes are timber, shoes, outerwear, software, hardware, and that's it. So by getting into that august group, we joined into that list of things along with cannabis and Frank.
Manufacturing was one.
Oh, manufacturing, yeah, you're right. That guy. It's always that guy. No, you're absolutely right. But then we went in with cannabis, organic farming, the blue economy, which is all the ocean energy stuff, and commercial music and live performance. So it's a limited list, and it's a huge deal that we're in there. And then the state legislature, yeah, sure. Now, the state legislature allocated $160,000 for the study of commercial music and live performance, and $20,000 of that went to our census project. And our census project had been started with our partners in Alaska, British Columbia, Washington, and Idaho. Is Michael here? Hey, there's Michael. Okay. Michael has been working with Alaska, but he lives here now, so we get him. And so we worked with all of these groups saying we need a regional study. And we're still hoping to get some good regional data out of it, but these things change as they go along. For instance, in Alaska, if you're looking for a place that hosts live music, you look for every bar or restaurant that has the word moose in it. It was enlightening to learn this much about another music culture. But so from the census, we have a lot of data. We gave them a lot of data. They sort of distilled it into this census. And for the most part, they came away with the conclusions that we hoped they would. That NAICS codes and standard industry schema don't work when you're trying to catalog commercial music. It just doesn't fit. Partly because it hasn't been designed to fit, and partly because we as a community don't color in the lines. So, you know, you have people that say, I don't see something that's exactly me, so I'm going to say I'm a cow farmer, you know, and people do things to be whimsical. But that's one of the things we have to change, is we have to actually be more professional in that regard. So when we come back and do this study again, the data that they pull really makes a difference. Some of the conclusions, and I'm not going to spend, this is not going to be a full accounting of the census. But these are some highlights. Y'all got to help me up here. Did I mention 80 pages of economic detail? So, let's see. Of the bands reporting and the artists reporting, 3/4 of them that responded said they make $20,000 or less in 2022. That's obviously not anything near a living wage. Another 17% made between $20,000 and $50,000. But of the 708 responding individual artists, they totaled $11 million in income, that's 700 artists. Now keep in mind that CD Baby has confirmed that there are more than 13,000 unique acts that publish new music on their platform alone in the 5 years prior to COVID. So if you figure each band is one person, that's 13,000 individuals. We got 708 of them, and it was $11 million. There's another 8 million reported by people that were reporting for a whole band. So you've got $20 million in income for artists who aren't paid enough. And they're still generating income, and they're creating induced economic impact. Oh, ask me about economic terms. Ask me. But, the fact is that they go out of state. They go out of state, and they earn money, and they bring it back to Oregon, and they use it to buy groceries, or they use it to buy stuff. That all has an impact, and it's stuff that we've never been given credit for. Other things we've never been credited with, unlike the film industry, are things like the fact that venues like this one bring artists from out of state who come here, an average of 3 people, according to our census data, per touring act, including crew and performers. And if half of them are, getting hotel rooms or Airbnbs or something, from those responding, it's 1,800 hotel rooms, which is $250,000. So there's all of this stuff that's never been counted. And what this first effort did, we learned a lot about what we would do differently next time. But it told us and the economists, and now through the report that's being delivered to the state legislature on Wednesday, it told them this is big. This is way bigger than we knew. And there are serious gaps. For the people that were at the cultural planning meeting the last week, I loved what Constance Bracewell, the new executive director of the Old Church, said, is that music is the coral reef of Portland. We are absolutely a structural foundation on which all these other things happen. But we are at risk. And if we don't survive, a lot of this other stuff goes away too. And I love that as a way to think about us. Let me see other things. Oh yeah, the total economic impact. The total economic output, which includes the actual direct money used to buy gear, used to pay for a service, or used to buy a ticket at a venue, is just under $3 billion. Indirect is about $700 million. Induced effect, the money that you spend because you work in a venue or you made money, is another $500 million. And so the entire total sum is just under $4 billion impact. And that, when you accept the fact that they're not tracking everything, they can't find everything because it's not actually measured the right way. This is a fraction of what we do. And part of our job is to make sure that we're going back out. We step up professionally so they can find us, and that we stand together and demand what we need. So we are our advisory council for the economic impact study. We have a number of folks, raise your hand, people that worked their tails off. Music Policy Council, we got Bruce Fife, we got Derek, I know you put some input into it. Oh, gee. Let's see, who else? Anybody else here from that whole thing? It's been a lot of hours. Oh, way in the back, there's a hand waving. I can't see who it is. Amy Dragon, yes, Amy Dragon also, absolutely. And these folks, we did multiple meetings with the economists. We steered them to make sure that they were coming away with the right conclusion. Some conclusions that they came away from, I think, are skewed and need more study. 63 people in the census, in the comments, mentioned stagnating pay for artists. So the fact, and they all said, it hasn't gone up in 30 years. And I know that's true, and I know that's people's experiences. What we found was 90+% of them make $5,000 or less per year. So they may not be playing as often, and they're certainly playing in mixed-use venues. I think the mixed-use venues is a place we need to pay a lot of attention, helping them and creating incentive programs for them to actually be incentivized to pay artists fairly on a prevailing wage. And I know, the union created Fair Trade Music 13 years ago. How many years ago? But there are models that we can do, but it takes solidarity. It takes all of us standing together. And the next time a venue says, hey, you want to play for free? I'll let you put a tip jar out. What do you say? No. Thank you, no. But I think, I think it is about deciding where we want to be. And, and in some ways segmenting ourselves. If somebody is really a hobbyist, great. Be a hobbyist. That's not a professional. If you're a professional, let's stand with each other and make things different. So, any questions about the census? There will be more in print, I promise you, once I get through all of the econ talk, and we're delivering afterwards, which are a 4-page summary of recommendations that have been developed by the Advisory Council and the Music Policy Council to say of the state, this is what we need. And it includes, proportionate funding for commercial artists that can be obtained by individuals, support of a commercial music office at the state level, which will be ideally a semi-independent agency like Film Oregon, or like Prosper Portland, or like Travel Portland or Travel Oregon. These are all originally nonprofits that are recognized by the state, given funding and given power and control and a seat at the table. And that's what we're pushing for at the state level. Yeah. So, any questions about the census before we move more locally to the cultural plan that is about the here and now? See, this is what economic data does to everybody. Go ahead, Marie.
Given the number of people who filled it out and the number of people who said, dang, that was due last week, will there be an opportunity for people to fill it out that missed it the first time?
The economists in their report say we have to do a census of music every year, and we have to have that tied to specific initiatives where we are reaching out to music businesses, looking at what NAICS codes they're under, rationalizing those that have something that could actually be logically, and identifying those that don't and picking something ludicrous and putting everybody there. Because there are a bunch of things in music that the government doesn't track, like digital distribution of music. There's no NAICS code for that. So where does CD Baby go? So there's a bunch of real challenges. But yes, we will continue to survey, and it's always a challenge because when we put out surveys and questions, a lot of times people are like, "Ugh, I don't want to answer that." It really matters. So when I do, I hope I can count on everybody in the room. If we send out a survey about something, share it. Tell people it matters. It really does. Because some of the data that came out of the census skews the answers because it was limited. So we don't want to be limited. We want to make it really good. Good question, though. Anybody else? No?
What's next step?
Next step is it goes to the legislature. And then we will be, the specific recommendations, we will put out, share with everybody and let you know what it is we asked the state for. And then people that are particularly interested in any of those topics and would like to contribute or participate in that process, please let us know. What's going to come out of tonight is we're talking about the regional cultural plan, is we really are hoping that we organize some work groups. Because once you define an actionable recommendation, then you got to follow up on it. You got to make it real. So we're definitely going to be looking for people that want to participate, want to help us put this into action, and so that a year from now, when we're doing another census, nobody asks why, because we've delivered results. So that's your job. All right. Now, you got in the email from Rebecca. Does everybody know Rebecca? Here's Rebecca. Rebecca Miller goes by Reba, and she's the new Missy, and she's phenomenal. And she's been just like picking up balls and threads that I've dragged behind, pieces of toilet paper off the back. It's been fantastic. But No, I cannot say thank you enough. She's really been a huge help. And we're regrouping. There's a bunch of, as I was saying to these guys, 5 years we've been pushing up a hill, a really big rock, to try and get anybody to pay attention, to try and get the kind of attention and funding that we need. And about 3 months ago or 4 months ago, I don't know, we hit the top of the hill. And now it's rolling fast. We're getting the attention. We're being asked the questions, and we have to deliver. So we're in kind of a reboot situation on some of the organizations. And I know a lot of people have said, how can I help? What can I do? And we really are working to figure out exactly what that is and make it possible for people to contribute, because we want and need all of you in this. So look for opportunities and keep coming to things like this, because it really is huge. So you guys got a little survey form in your email, the reminder for this meeting. Did some folks drop in some thoughts to that? Yeah, a couple? Okay. Keep that email. And there is, do you have a scan code or anything to get people back to it if they want to not talk?
I can take anonymous contributions via analog. I also have, you can use my computer to, it's a very simple form, open text boxes. It's, a few minutes of your time. So if you'd like to submit some feedback tonight, you're welcome to. I can also make sure you have the link before you get out of here. But it really is, like Mira is saying, really, really critical that we get your input. And
we're going to be asking for some talk back, like we had at the other planning meeting. We want to keep this going, because how many folks were at the cultural planning meeting at Show Bar? Okay, good. And then some of you maybe saw the video that we sent out of the event. So you sort of saw the action. What I was so incredibly proud of was seeing my community stand up and say, this is it, it's hard, but everybody brought constructive ideas to it. It was really just ennobling. And the consultants that have been tasked by RAC to do this were a little confused, because they said, well, the other culture groups aren't this organized. We had 75, 100 people there. And then we said, great, and then we're doing it again on Monday. And they're like, what? You what? And that's the energy that we're bringing to this, and that's why we're going to do great things. So it's all about y'all. Keep coming. But what I want to do is ask you for thoughts. Like, for those of you that were at that thing, what were your follow-up? Some of the themes that came up were artist relations, obviously pay, and, finding safe rehearsal spaces, things like that. The other ones are venue relations, kind of what venues need, music business support, and audience development. And maybe I will start with that last one, because we've got somebody here I would love to introduce you to. But artist development, what we want are creative ideas of who's coming to music now, who isn't coming to music now, and why not? How do we, all these people that moved to Portland to work because it's a groovy music town, and they've only ever seen a show at the Moda, how do we change that? What are the programs that we can do that change it? Liz Gabriel.
I have an idea.
Speak loud.
I make a website, a little self-promotion here. I make a website that is concert listings, but integrated with Spotify. So for anyone who's ever looked at concert listings and said, I've never heard of any of these bands, but I bet I'd like some of them, it's all integrated in one place now. You don't have to try to track the band down on Facebook or on Spotify or whatever. It's all integrated right there. And for artists, you can list your own shows. If you're playing at one of those venues that does not promote their shows, that only puts something on Instagram, if you provide a poster for them, you can list your show on my website for free, and it'll appear with equal billing to anything happening at Crystal Ballroom or the Moda Center or anything like that.
What's it called?
It's called Near Here. You can find it at nearhere.com.
NEARHEAR.app. There we go. She brought some pieces. Nice. Yeah, no, Near Here is amazing. And one of the things that we definitely heard, we've spoken with like Willamette Week, because they used to be the center. I mean, they used to be the heart. You could go there and there was like 9 pages of show listings for the week, and they're gone. And their reason is that the venues aren't paying them as much money anymore. So the newspapers that say that there is a absolute dividing wall and a clear difference between their advertising and their editorial, not so much. So we need to figure out a different way to do it. How do we promote ourselves? How do we make sure that it's not just a list of a bazillion show names that you don't know, or that you have to be on the venue list? You know, I've been loving some of the venues write-ups about their bands. I think like it's a treat. And half the time I'm like, it sounds like I would hate that, but it's pure poetry the way they talk about it. But you know, I think we all have to stand together. It's not artists against venues. It is all of us together building audiences. And being creative about that. One of the cool things that is in process, already going, it's still going, right? Okay, Robin, can you climb up better than I did? No, she cannot. Okay, should I just describe it? All right. So Robin Tenenbaum, you can harass her later, is the one that created the system that was playing local music in all the Burgervilles. Remember that? It was Pacific Northwest artists played in Burgerville. And it was this kind of revolutionary thing. It was only for Burgerville for a while though. And then, you know, COVID hit and everything kind of backed off. But it's come back in gangbusters. There's a new contact at the system that it's built on. What it does is it says, this is Portland band, you know, Drunken Puppy, whatever. And oh, you'd love them. This is, you know, local band Drunken Puppy, and, you know, and so when you're sitting in your dentist's office, or you're sitting at a grocery store, or you're sitting at a plaid pantry, or you're sitting at, you know, in a restaurant. At the Portland airport? All right. We will work with you and the musician local, because that's got a whole big thing going on. But so the idea is, you know, as this is developed, it's like, great, it's great for exposure. You know, think of all the people that could hear your music that have never, and I was like, holy shit, it's exposure. Oh, that's not right. That's, you know, that doesn't pass the litmus test. So what Robin and her team has made sure is that the system is fully registered on Sound Exchange, so the owner of the recording gets, the Sound Exchange royalties are just insanely good. For every pay, it's like 30 cents or something. I mean, it's great. But if you have a label, they own the recording. If you're independent, you own the recording. And then the songwriters, ASCAP, BMI, all the PROs are on it, and we're making sure that they report all of the song plays in all of the locations, so that local artists are actually getting something from the PROs. So that's the kind of thing, like building audiences, making sure artists get paid, and trying to just make it all connect more, so that it's not just the Moda Center where people go. Any other ideas for artist development? This is not supposed to be a Mara chat show. This is supposed to be all y'all talking. So, you want the microphone, Bruce? Here, take it. I heard you.
Oh, may I have a question?
Yes.
You mentioned the prevailing wage. What is the thought that's gone in behind that, and what's kind of the base of where you start that conversation?
Nice try.
Always a smartass, aren't I?
Yeah, you are.
So my name is Bruce Fife. Was the president of the Musicians Union local here in Portland for the last 20 years. I'm newly retired from that. I'm still the international vice president for another 6 months. But the union, which we've been around since 1899 here in town, every year we have a committee that reviews what musicians think that scale wages should be in the community. And so it varies from the different type of work. There's not one set rate that this is the rate, because it varies on, for instance, the Eagles just played at the Moda Center. We have a contractor that booked a 40-piece orchestra to back them up for that show, that single show. They get paid a certain amount because that's considered a large venue that is different than somebody playing a venue like this. We take into consideration all those variables that we all face in the marketplace for what type of show it is. So, and then we have scales that cover recordings and commercial announcements and everything else. So basically it's a huge part of what we do and have done for 100 and some odd years.
Yeah, and so but I think that there's, the other thing is that artists don't, a lot of artists are playing like without 1099s. They're playing a little cash deal at the front door where they're completely without any sort of protection. A lot of places don't include any bar revenue, but if you're a band that really moves the liquor, it seems like you should. So I think that there are a lot of conversations, and this is not an artist versus venue, because one of the things that we're pitching to the state is a liquor tax abatement for venues that present live music and that pay artists a prevailing wage. And what we've seen is that the serious venues, like places that have music every night, like this place, Mississippi, Crystal, they're actually paying artists more since COVID, in the same way that they're having to pay staff more. The places that aren't are the more informal places, as far as we can tell. And they're the places that are like, I'll throw you what I pick up at the door. Or, informality is not our friend. So I think that we need, as a collective and with a working group and with venues at the table, artists at the table, that we talk about what we can do to make it better, which is about, common good and definitely making sure that artists are getting supported as they need it. That sort of does anybody else, artist relations?
Well, this is kind of on wage, but has anybody talked to the Port of Portland about places like the airport where people don't get paid? I mean, it seems like that's one big government entity that could help out.
Okay, these poor guys saw me lose my stuffing this weekend because I was at the airport and I found a player piano with a fiberglass clear thing over it playing, inside of which had a sign saying, "Presenting the best of Portland music." An empty bench.
I hate to do this again, but everything we do is dependent upon the musicians deciding they want us to do it. Okay? We can't just walk in as a union and make somebody do something. If there's actually an employer-employee relationship, the employees, the musicians, have to take a vote that says they want union representation. So about every 2 to 3 years, a musician gets mad that's doing volunteer stuff at the airport, and they'll come into our office, and we'll start the conversations, and I'll bet I've done this 4 or 5 times over the years, and the musicians do not want to get paid because they are afraid if they demand it that they'll shut down the music altogether out there.
Conversely, in Seattle at SeaTac, I work closely, Michael of Alaska and I work closely with Kate Becker, who started the Seattle Office of Music and Film and now is the head of the King County Cultural Economy Office. And she shared the whole story of what happened at SeaTac, which is the concessionaires, the shops and selling the Grudaws and the snow globes said, "Oh, we don't want music here. It'll drive our customers away." So the Office of Music and film paid $250,000 the first year to bring artists in and pay them decently. And then the second year, the concessionaires said, this is amazing. They were fighting over who got to have the band near them. And they put in $250,000. And in the third year, the concessionaires paid $500,000 to make sure that they had music in the airport. So right now, we've got somebody, God love him, playing the pan flute in the airport. That's the gateway to Portland, the Music City. Love that guy. Yeah. It clearly. The other thing I've talked with Travel Portland about is funding a music concierge. Apropos of audience development and audience engagement, if you're rolling into Portland and there's signs all over saying you've come to the largest independent music city in the country, because we are, and you're like, yeah, but how do I find what I'm going to do? Have a kiosk, have volunteers that man it, that say, what do you like? Let's look it up. Here's a thing called Near Here. Check that out. When you're in stores, you're going to be hearing music about it. You're going to be hearing this music. So listen up, because you may hear something you really want to go see. These are the venues. This is what do you like in a venue? Like, how do we help people be in our music scene? And maybe that's not just for travelers. Maybe that's for residents too. Maybe that's ambassadors that we send off to corporations. And there's someone waving in the back.
Two-part question. It relates to access to music and it relates to reach of music. So my question is, what is the current trajectory and the headwinds to all ages shows? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Derek, you want to take this one? You don't have to. They don't want to listen. Here's Bruce grabbing the mic, and you just, all right. So, you'll take that. Oh, good. I didn't know you were here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andre Middleton. I'm the executive director of Friends of Noise, an all-ages music organization. Right now, the trajectory is actually quite bright. The pandemic moved so much music out of the indoor space and into outdoor public spaces like under bridges and house shows. So right now there's a really burgeoning all-ages scene of musicians who have got hours and hours and days of music playing in front of audiences in front of them. Just last Friday, I was at the Mission Theater where there were 3 local bands played in front of a sold out show. And there were adults, there were parents, there were young people. Hey, Jay. So it's really growing. Right now, for example, Alberta Abbey is hosting a lot of all ages shows there. Friends of Noise is working and hosting. There's a new spot called Jaja PDX, which is over in Southwest 8th and Taylor, that has been hosting regular shows there. So the scene is growing. What's really needed is not so much to transform adult venues that serve alcohol into all-ages spaces, but if we could just carve out maybe 1 or 2 nights a month at a variety of spaces that are willing to take the loss 1 night a month. So if we could get an all-age show here and an all-age show at the Wonder Ballroom that is really all ages, not just where they're, so something, also another thing about all ages, we've got to really support local music. To have a lot of touring bands come into town and not really book a local act. That's how we get people to know and to hear the songs and to fall in love with the songs. I mean, I grew up here in the 80s and 90s where you knew who Hazel was, you knew who Sean Crogan was, you knew who 30-06 was, you knew who Pond was because you got to see their music and hear them over and over and over again. So I do think I think we're on the upswing, and I do think that the pandemic actually was kind of like a 2 steps forward and actually, 2 steps back and 3 steps forward, because there are a lot of young people who are just itching to get out there and perform. There's a band called Rhododendron, who I've known when they were still in high school. They're actually going to Treefort this year. So there are a lot of bands that are playing Wow Hall in Eugene, going up to Olympia, really trying to make a circuit of this, going up to Bellingham. So they're on the verge. And just if they could get a little more love from a couple of local venues that said, hey, whether it's Blackwater's doing a great job, but how do we really build a scene where bands are being seen by their brethren? And it needs to be not centralized. It needs to be in North Portland. It needs to be in East County. It needs to be decentralized so that young people don't have to take the train or the MAX or a bus for an hour and a half to get to see a show and then get home at 1 o'clock in the morning because it doesn't let out till midnight. So we got to be able to embrace not like the matinee show, but there's a show that maybe the doors open at 6 and ends at 10. There's nothing wrong with getting out of a show at 10. I tell you, I love it. I love getting out of a show at 10. But yeah, if we just get 1 or 2 nights from just a circuit of bars, I think that'd be really transformable.
Yeah. Awesome. I love this guy. So the other good news is that there are policy initiatives underway. As I mentioned, liquor tax abatement. We want to tie liquor tax abatement, which is a huge deal. It's going to help the venues because they pay enormous liquor taxes. And if you tie that to some prevailing wage requirements and to all ages access, to a certain amount of all ages exposure, that starts to help. If that's in mixed-use venues, there's actually advocacy well underway already by the IVC and Eben Hoffer of our Policy Council to actually create, and this is looking really promising, to create a new liquor license designation. Right now, dedicated music venues are classified the same way as bars are. So they have to have 5 entrees. How many people have ever gone to the Roseland going, I'm going to get a nice dinner, and then I'm gonna see a show? It doesn't make sense. So that what is being proposed is to say we want to acknowledge that dedicated music venues that are not open when they don't have music playing have a different kind of a license, which can allow for things like wristbands and putting kids into shows that, they don't have to get fake IDs, which puts them at risk in other places. It puts them into shows where they can see the acts that they want and that they're hanging out with adults there and kind of learning how to be great music fans, and be part of the scene. And I think that in combination with the stuff that Andre's talking about is really hopeful. And it was one thing, there were probably 150 people that gave comments in the census saying we need all ages. There is absolute consensus that this is a priority, so it will continue to be. Opening shows earlier. I'm old. You saw me get up on this stage. I'm old. And the idea that on a Wednesday night a venue still thinks that they need to have doors at 8, music starts at 9, and they have 3 bands. Who is the audience they're trying to get? It's not the people with a lot of income because they got day jobs they got to get up for. So the idea that, we can't charge more for tickets because people won't pay more. Well, they would if you shifted things earlier so it was more inclusive of the people that maybe aren't coming now. Francis?
Are there venues that do like a kind of traditional showcase, like playing in New York and what have you, just from like 6 to noon, you could see like 5, 6 bands, it's kind of back to back, but it's, you do a 45-minute set and then you pull off and, are there any venues that do that?
Not many.
Are there? Derek is nodding his head. No, he's not nodding his head. Is anybody nodding their head? Oh, wait, okay. Here's Shelley of Artichoke Cafe.
We do once or twice a month, Thursday night coffee house showcase. It's a half hour, 4 different people. Sometimes it's a duo, trio, solo. We're always all ages. We have very low ticket prices, and many of our shows are on sliding scale. So check out our website. Yeah, and we have a jazz jam once a month that is geared toward high school students with Chris Brown. So,
What's the name again?
Artichoke.
Music, Southeast 20th and Powell.
Let's talk about admission prices. It's fine to say that artist pay has been stagnating, but I was trying to find, and if anybody knows of a resource that says kind of what average club charges are in different cities, I'd be really interested to know. Because I can still see music here for $5. Nobody's making any money if I'm paying $5. And the idea that, yeah, there we go. And the fact that, if you have people that, come in and pay $8 at the door and $40 for their drinks for the night and think they're supporting music, we need to disabuse them of that bullshit. Because no. That's not right. And somebody is benefiting a lot from that and somebody isn't. So these are the kinds of things we definitely want to be tapping into to get to actionable strategies. Go.
Another point that speaks to that is that when we're booking traveling touring artists coming through Portland, you look at their shows in Seattle and Bellingham and Idaho and even in northern and central California, look at all their other shows on the same tour, their tickets cost twice as much.
Is that true?
Yes. For the artists that I've been booking, their tickets are costing twice as much elsewhere than they cost. So for half the price, you can see the band in Portland. Is that a reflection of the audience expectation? Because I don't know that if we tried to sell them at the same price as, now I'm not talking about national touring acts, I'm talking about,
regional ones, yeah.
Regional acts, maybe a step up from bar bands or something, but.
I had a lot of venues that I worked with for Portland Music Month saying, we want to add $1 or $2. It's going right into the musician grant fund. And some of them were like, oh, I'm afraid people wouldn't come. It was like a $6 ticket. You couldn't add $1, and they had more crowds in January than they had in December. Yeah. I mean, people came up, yeah, and it's so I don't know. I think it's us.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's our fault as a collective community because I've seen, particularly as a DJ, I've been in multiple venues, traveled all over the place, and see the difference between how some other cities treat their local bands and artists versus how we in Portland tend to treat our local bands and artists. And it's a mindset. It's a mindset that, everything, we're not as big of a city because we are not on the industry radar in terms of public promotion and things like that. It sets a mentality that we don't have as much value as other people, which we know is untrue. And I've seen we have talent in this city in various genres that can compete on the highest level. We just don't promote our artists and the value of our artists. We don't make a big deal out of it, and so when it comes to paying for shows, people show up like that. It's like, oh, it's not that a big deal, so I'll pay somebody that's an independent artist that is just as known as a local artist, but it's perceived that they are more, valuable. So I'll pay that $20 or $30 ticket and won't try to get on the guest list for a $5. I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah.
So I think we have to change our mindset and start making a more bigger deal out of the talent and creatives that we have here to raise the value, not of their craft because they're gifted and they have the talent, but we have to raise the perception that our artists and musicians are just as valuable as any other city.
And it's perception. It is not only. Is this okay without? No, it's not okay. Apparently, Stephen really wants the full Mara. Okay. The other thing is that stages like this, what we don't want to do is curtail their ability or demean their ability to introduce new acts and to develop new talent. I think, part of this is sort of acknowledging where are we in tiers as a music community, because we've got amazing breakouts and we've got amazing mid-levels and we've got, brand new figuring it out folks. We want to support all of them, but I think it's about sort of honestly saying, how do we do that? How do we make this a city that is creating greatness, supporting it at each stage, and, you know, building audiences for each different part of that equation. So, what else? Somebody else got stuff. There's some. Oh, there. Here, let's see. Achilles. Speak. Hello.
I just want to say hello. I have a 12-piece Latin band. I have a local venue here that reached out to me, wanted to book us. 80% of the door with a cap at 800. I said, no. If I'm going to do 80% or 90% of the door, I got to take all the door. You're making money on the drinks and food, so we have to buy it ourselves what we have. We'd rather not pay, not play. But it's insane for them to even offer something like that when they know I have a 12-piece band. Yes, I know. Local band, venue.
Yes.
I think it's important. I mean, we're talking about raising ticket prices, which is really important, but I think we're also, live music in general is competing with TV, and most people just want to stay home and be lazy and watch TV. That's just kind of a reality. And I think live music needs to be like water. It just needs to be everywhere. It's not just about raising the ticket prices, it's about making it so accessible and so all-encompassing that you can just walk down the block and see someone performing. And I think in order to do that, we have to create different ways of paying people, and also different ways for people to pay. Because that's just so.
No, that's.
That it's not just it's this big deal. We're going to go out. We're going to see a band tonight. We're going to pay. It's I just feel like relaxing, so I'm going to go hang out and see a band. So if there was some way to make that feasible and also keep people paid, I think that would be the best case scenario.
I think that's great. One thing that was suggested too is, everybody. How many people have Venmo or PayPal, or they can take digital tips? How's that working for you? Not very well. I think having a branded program where there's a common iconography, you're looking at a band and there's this symbol and they're like, oh yeah, there's that thing. All I have to do is scan that thing and I can tip them. If we need to make tipping easier, it doesn't mean that we don't want to get them paid wages at a higher level, but I think tipping is part of it. Right now, since COVID, and since everybody became, I think, more aware of the service workers that they interact with, who here isn't tipping higher than they did before? I mean, now you're looking at somebody who's giving you your coffee, you're thinking about it, and they're not making enough, and you throw a little extra in the pot. We need to make that part of a music experience so that and make it as easy as possible and make it kind of a cultural norm. At least I think so, but I'm not the working group. There we go.
Yeah. I heard a lot about, the view from musicians and people who are performing. And I kind of straddle both sides. I work with the Jack London, the Wilson, and the Alberta Abbey, and a few other venues. And there's really, there's a point here where we have to really just be honest with ourselves. Musicians are not getting paid enough money. That's a fact. People will go to free shows and try to get in. That's Portland. I'm old enough to remember the last hurrah, places that were unbelievable in Portland and downtown. Most of the time you had to pay $15, $20. That was back then. People are not paying. The musicians deserve the money. The artists, the venues cannot survive. They want to pay. They want to pay what's deserved. But when you can't pay the bills, where do you go? And so there has to be a mindset and change that you need to pay to see live music in Portland. You need to. Whether it's Clyde's, who lets people in for free all the time, and then the musicians have to pay for, I'm not going to even say. But there's a fine line, and we have to change the mentality of people because it's not going to work. We're losing venues.
Yeah.
We're losing venues. And they're struggling. And they don't know what to do. And it's not because they don't want to pay the musicians.
Right.
They want to, but we have to have a standard And we have to have a buy-in from the musicians too to help us promote. Like this young lady here, we need to get the word out about how good, like OG said, our musicians are fantastic. It's never changed. Portland has been one of the leaders. And we still have a great community, but I'm telling you, we're at a point now where something has to change, and it has to change soon. And we got to come together and find a model that's going to work for everybody, because we don't want to lose our venues. I'm at the Alberta Abbey. We do all ages. We're one of the only venues now. Back in the day, there was tons of all ages venues. It doesn't make sense. The people are still there. They want it. But we have to figure out a way to get the word out and get support, whether it's the government, whether it's the high schools, the colleges. There's an ecosystem there that we can pull together and bring us all up together. But at the bottom, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just saying, the musicians, we have to figure out how to pay them. We do.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
Keep
well
the
said.
venues going too.
Yeah, for sure. And this is not a bad venue conversation. This is a we got a problem, and we all have a problem. And I think, my sort of return to harangue is, it's about marketing. We need to rebrand Portland music. We need to rebrand what it means to live in Portland relative to music. We need to rebrand what it means to be a company that does business in Portland and has employees in Portland. And what does it mean? Because you live in this unbelievably important coral reef. And what are you going to do about it? And what is your personal responsibility to making sure that we keep it? And I think that is, for much better marketing brains than mine, there is a way. Nashville decided to be Music City because a biscuit company said, live from Music City on a radio, and they said, well, that's a good idea, let's do that. But their development of their music industry included a lot of people and didn't include a lot of others. And their Music City Music Commission, in its last 5 years, it's now defunct, didn't include any musicians. They were trying to build convention business. The Music City Music Commission was about leveraging music as a way to get something else. And that's what we have to be aware of. But I still think that rebranding us in a positive way, in an authentic way, and really engaging and challenging people to participate in a sustainable way is the only way we can do it. So, Frank, do you have something?
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I've been to the Elders Street Abbey. They're doing a fantastic job and opening it up, and it's a beautiful place. And we've all been to those venues that, they get it, right? The people that work there are enjoying being there, the sound is great, the people that are working there are great, and it just makes the whole experience. I mean, not all the venues are going to withstand, right? But how can we communicate that? How can we connect artists and venues, to kind of bring, just expose the karma, bring it, like Chris Brown, and the jazz. I've got, my son is in the PSU jazz program, and they are killing it as far as like bringing people together and mentoring and just bringing all of the elements. And so we just, that's our job. That's what we need to be doing, is just bolstering the culture.
Right. David?
Going back to something you were talking about earlier, as far as fan engagement, it would be very helpful if there was a centralized platform that had show listings where somebody could go online and say, what's happening tonight or what's happening this weekend, what can I go see? So Liz has something, there's some other platforms in town, but it's really a matter of adoption and buy-in, because it would take, first of all, it would probably take venues and or artists to consistently list their show listings so a large portion of shows in town are represented. And then it would just be a matter of getting the word out to the potential showgoers. Here's where you can go.
So I will say, when we were in talking to Willie Week, we looked at their calendar for that day, and they had 4 shows listed. And then we pulled up near here, and she had 37 for the same night. Like, she has every major venue you could name is in near here now, and then any artist can add, if there's a show that's at, a house concert or whatever, you can add it.
So, maybe the answer is, and maybe it's near here, maybe it's something else, maybe it's a combination of things, but there needs to be, and it sounds like you've got a lot of artists and venues coming to you listing shows on your platform.
I do the legwork of listing shows, but it is available to add shows also.
So, and I'm imagining that there's venues and shows that aren't on your platform, because if you're doing it all by yourself, then that's not, that's a lot of legwork. But,
I mean, most of it's automated, but yeah, there are various reasons if venues don't list the shows consistently, like, put too many words in and it's hard to parse out what the band name is, yes.
yeah.
And then also there are a lot of venues that only list their shows on Facebook or Instagram.
Well,
And
yeah.
Facebook does a lot, they go to a lot of effort to prevent you from scraping data from your sites.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's all mine.
Your site kicks ass. I just went to it and subscribed, and like legitimately, it's I'll scour Willamette Week, I'll scour Portland Mercury, I'll scour just Portland music. Just because why not? But B, it's like I'm in the scene. But two, to have this aggregate site that's incredible. So I think if anything, if we're looking for a nucleus, then I would say collectively if you gravitate towards near here, which I'm going to do, then I think that's a starting point, right? Because if we're trying.
I appreciate that. Tell your friends.
So I would commend you for the efforts of doing that, because that's not easy work, but you're doing the good work. In tandem with, again, youth music. Again, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I remember going to the Nile, and I saw Saves the Day, brand new, Taking Back Sunday, and Yellow Card for $5 in the basement of the Nile Theater at like 13 years old. My brother was just got his license, and that changed my life. So again, in tandem with accessible music, who's playing, where are they playing, and also giving the reach and access to youth is if you want more audience, then let the audience in, right? Like don't just make it for drinkers 21 and older. Make it for everyone, because the next Dave Grohl, the next David Johns, the next anybody could be here, right? Like, or our kids, right? Like, so, but needless to say, that's awesome. So, yeah.
Amazing. You can also filter by genre that you like, and you can also just set up a playlist on Spotify that every day updates, and it plays only bands that are performing tonight in Portland. So you, on your drive home from work.
Can you do it by neighborhood?
Can you do it by neighborhood?
Not yet.
No, I'm just thinking about like, you know, if there's a successful model, you know, like instead of Portland, maybe successful neighborhood, you know, what are they doing? Oh, they're doing, okay, cool, can we replicate that, you know, can we?
So when somebody's at the airport and they get off their plane, there's an advertisement on the wall that says here, and maybe there's a QR code, go here and see what music's playing. So.
The other thing it's really cool about that, though, it's also the snippets. Because I think most people don't really take the time to go through, and it's like, what's that band? I gotta look it up on YouTube and all that. If everybody's contributing their snippets to that as an artist, I mean, that's huge. It just saves the time to get one. We'll do it.
And they're all there. We used them for Music Month, and it just made a huge difference. I heard a ton of people going, "Yeah, I just saw it. I listened to them on the website and went, oh, cool, great." The other thing about people want to stay at home and watch TV, I think it's important for us to just keep talking about it and remind people that, you know, your couch doesn't love you back. And that, you know, and they paid $4. Yeah, you're right. They paid to watch the movie anyway. But, you know, it's like, you've probably heard me, but I love the idea of collective effervescence, which I think was originally termed as a social science term for churches. But how many people have been in a music venue in this town and look across the room and see somebody you don't know, you're never going to talk to, and go, is this the best thing in the world? That's collective effervescent. You don't get that in the grocery store. Attributed to Brasco Miles. That was his line. You know, that's what we have to brand. That's what we have to remind people about. I was at a show this weekend, and I had somebody say, I just went and saw somebody that I've loved, like it's been my number one artist for, you know, a decade, and I went and saw them in a big giant thing. And this show that I'm at tonight, like, this is more impactful. This was just like changing. And that's what those are the stories we have to make sure that people are remembering. You in the back?
Someone just posted a misconnection from my show this weekend, so it's like we're helping people fall in love. The fans need us, okay? And they're like, we're making eyes at each other all night, and I'm like, you were?
As I say, coral reef, baby. Renee.
So you were mentioning Alberta Abbey. I used to work there for a couple years as the events director, and it was before things started to get really start rolling, but things were starting to get real nice there. And one of the things that I was really wanting, and I know a lot of people walked in there and kind of felt the magic of that place, and one of the things I really wanted was to make sure that we hired musicians, or that we hired artists to be in that space. And I can think of also Mississippi Studios. Their motto is venue run by musicians. And so to me it's if you really want musicians and venues to work together, you need to have venues hiring musicians and understanding that, hey, musicians tour, musicians also need to but also working at a venue and learning the parts of the venue and learning what it takes to promote it and what it takes, the ins and outs of that kind of stuff is important. So musicians really learning how venues work, venues really learning how musicians work, and working together in that way and hiring each other, seeing it as such a beneficial collaboration is really important. So
Here,
I think
here.
there needs to be more of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that too. I'm kind of coming at it from both places. I'm a musician, bass player. I played in a band called Life During Wartime, which is a tribute Talking Heads thing. But I'm also at the Alberta Abbey with JP over there, and I've put on, all in the last year trying to make things happen. I have a production company there. One thing that's not being talked about that I'm going to experiment with to pay a living wage to musicians, me being one of them, and knowing what it feels like to walk away with $50, 4 hours of work, is to approach sponsorships to augment and bolster what venues are risk adverse to be losing, right? So if I'm going to try a new band, or I'm gonna put together a themed night, I'm about to launch a family-friendly programming series at the Abbey for kids. New electric company, new Sesame Street, something like that. So I'm gonna go after local vendors that are kid-friendly to try and get $10,000 so that I don't have to lose my shirt and the artists are gonna be guaranteed. So that's one solution to maybe sort of bolster and buffet what's missing so that clubs aren't going to lose their shirt and artists will get paid.
Oh, look, hands. This is exciting. Okay, let's go Arietta and then John.
Okay. One thing I hear about the TV being at the house, looking at things, and not being at a live show. Now, I have a lot of older folks that wish they can come to the venues, but they can't. One thing that we did learn through the whole pandemic is the whole streaming situation. A lot of people got outfitted with cameras that can stream. We could possibly, just throwing it out, have a dedicated streaming situation that is for Portland venues. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can provide like a subscription. And you can stay at the house. Maybe you can't find a babysitter, because my sister, she got 5 kids. She don't come out unless never mind. But it's that's how I discovered a lot of people, because we didn't have any option, but there are people that prefer being at the house, and they can still have a night. They can still have things together, and if you do have your whatever your electronic situation or QR, whatever, up there, they can support you that way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to take away, right, but it's something that's for us, by us, and it's just another option, especially for people that are immunocompromised. I'm one of the people, so sometimes I want to support a whole bunch of people, but when it's a big crowd, I'm like, I don't know these people, I don't know where they're been. So it's just another way and another, if there's another option. So if there's a lot of the venues that do have the streaming that you can just click, and see who's down here, oh, who's over here. And if you really want to see a show and you can't, you know, it can be a discounted ticket, you know, or it can be part of subscription. So just another way.
Is there a centralized platform at this point? Does anybody know about?
No.
That is for live stream shows, like a pay-per-view, you can look and see and get a sample? How great would that be? To like be able to say, great, what's in Portland, I can't go out, what's in Portland tonight?
Right.
You can do a little sample, see a little kind of quick clip of people and then.
That sounds like something near here could have done.
Yeah, Liz has got to get paid. Let's get Liz paid. John.
Is that me?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
That's not, no, I'm not John.
Oh, you're not
but
John,
I-
sorry.
No, my name is TS. Hi, my name is TS, and I run a venue in Hillsborough. And also I played a punk rock band. So I just, sorry, I'm introducing myself because I'm not John. I just want to, you mentioned it, and there was some talk over here, and I just want to talk about like how much I respect and love small venues, and how I think how difficult, and my man over here said something too, how difficult it is for them. And I don't know what we can do to get, I don't know what we can do to get support for these venues so they can rest in the value of the musicians as well,
Right.
as opposed to like being worried that if you add $1 to a ticket price, you're going to get people to not come out, right? But also one of the things that especially I think smaller venues struggle with is dedicated, again, hiring musicians, dedicated booking agents who have the time and energy to actually connect artists. Instead, there are a lot of very small venues in this city that are, when you go to them, they're like, okay, great, but you've got to book the bands, and you've got to advertise yourself, and you've got to, and I have no answer to this question, but the idea of getting all of those people to the table too, and finding a way to support them so that they can actually support the music and and be able to recognize as well that it's an important piece of their venue. It's not just a bar, but also the music is an important thing too. So
Yeah, absolutely. So Amped Up, I've mentioned it before, is collecting artists. OG's done a lot of work with them, and it's about, putting artists' opportunities together and then matching them up with the venues that don't have a dedicated booker and that can, find and assess, and then they have the right contracts, everybody's protected. So it's kind of Amped Up. AMPTUP. Yeah, so check it out, and if you need a contact, I'll connect you.
yeah, I would love that. And also the other thing I'll say is just in solidarity about spreading it out, I'm representing the West Side out here, so.
Yay!
So if anybody's booking in the West Side. Yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
Cool.
You and me.
Bruce.
All the conversation about the prices reminds me of a similar problem that we had where everybody was afraid to raise prices on something for the very same reason that everybody's talking about. And, for some reason that doesn't stop people from raising the prices on booze or food or everything else that goes up, because those things are all going up too, and everybody pumps it up. But when it comes to the musicians, oh God, if we add something to the door. But we had a board member that, around this problem that we had, said, it's only $1. Raise it $1 every 6 months or something for your normal thing. And it'll be so kind of non-existent that people they'll become accustomed to it, and all of a sudden in 2 or 3 years you're at least up to more than where you're at now.
Yeah.
But that's a way to approach that we had to do it too.
And I would love for the venues too to work in solidarity toward that as well, as a.
Right, if it's the same everywhere, it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, so many places still charge the $5 you're talking
Yeah,
about. And it's
yeah.
like, come on,
I know.
it's been $5 forever.
Yeah, Bruce was saying that whenever he heard somebody asking the band to play for free for something, his response was, great, if the caterer and the trucking company and the chair rental place and the tablecloth rental and all, if they're all doing it for free, then absolutely the band's in. And as soon as you say it, people go, oh, yeah, that is kind of shitty, isn't it? We just got to say it.
We're not
you know?
leveraging shame enough.
Exactly. Shame campaign 2023. Let's do it.
The emotional smackdown.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, JP. Yeah.
Is there a way you can do something like this and get the venues together? Because that was, anyway.
Oh, yes, that's coming. The venue relations thing is going to be a venue conversation. And yeah, and the good news is that I know this venue is a phenomenal partner. They've been great. And they're coming through a hellish time too. And it's true, you're right. They want to do right by the musicians. And I think one of the things that we need to do and that they need to help us understand is making sure that the larger community understands what their hard places are. Because if you're like, oh, I can't believe that they're not doing this. Okay, did you know this about them? It's like I think there's a lack of transparency that also includes people kind of stepping up and saying, what do you charge? Honestly, what is the price you would charge for a 45-minute set? How many people? What would you charge? Not what you think you can get. What are you worth? And that's what our Connects program has been trying to collect. And you can go in, just go to, it's on Music Oregon, go to musicoregon.org/connects, CONNEX, and fill out a profile for yourself. It's never shared with anybody. But it's what our brokers use to match up non-venue gigs with artists. But it's really interesting too. If we're not kind of sharing in a safe way, anonymously, what we actually make and what we think we should make, how do we get started? Like, Francis.
Sorry, I just think, that's part of the marketing, like, most people, like if you just tell them what the deal is, they'll be like, yeah, totally. I'm totally down with what, extra $5, extra $10, whatever it is, because the experience that I'm having or I've had multiple times is just excellent. And I'm not a marketer, but there's a way of going about it, maybe a little bit of shame, but no, just reality, just reality of you want this to last.
Absolutely. We are coming up on time, and I want everybody to keep talking about this, and I want everybody to keep sending us ideas. I felt his gaze turn at me. But keep sending us ideas, and then if people are interested in helping us to drill down and to actually set up the recommendations that we want to submit into this cultural plan, then please go over and sign up Analog Old School with Rebecca, because these conversations are really important to get a whole bunch of ideas, but then it's about distilling them down, and then figuring out, working with the Policy Council to figure out, what policy needs to change to make it happen. Is it a cultural change, and who are the players, and what's the funding that we need? Really, really break it down so it's something that can happen. I don't want to spend my time just talking about stuff. It's got to get done. All right, everybody ready just to hang out and mingle and solve the problems at your own individual tables? Excellent. I love you all. Now it's watching me get down. This is going to be fun.